Everyone, welcome back. We've spent some videos talking about what overwhelm actually looks like, why the emotional piece is the part nobody in your business mastermind is addressing, and today we're going to get into the how. And I'm going to say something that sounds a little bit too simple, but it needs to be said. You have an order of operations problem. Most of the productivity strategies you tried, they're not wrong because they're bad strategies. They're wrong because you're trying to run them when your brain's offline. You're attempting to do step 3 before step 1 is complete. You need to regulate first, plan second. That's it. That's the too long didn't read, too long didn't watch, right? But I'm going to walk you through it and explain it so that you understand it. Here's what you were taught. Feel overwhelmed, make a plan. Try to execute the plan, fail because your brain wasn't actually online. Feel worse about yourself, and then repeat. Does that sound familiar? Yeah? Because that is the default productivity loop. And it almost never works for neurodivergent people because it skips the prerequisite entirely. Here's what actually works. Feel overwhelmed, regulate the nervous system, then assess what's actually real, then make the plan, and then execute from a brain that can actually function. Notice that the plan doesn't disappear. The execution doesn't disappear. You're just putting one thing before them that makes the other steps possible. That one thing is regulation, and most people don't really know what that means, which is where we're starting. Planning is prefrontal cortex work. Prioritizing, sequencing, deciding what matters, estimating how long things will take, all of that lives in your prefrontal cortex, your executive function skills. Overwhelm takes the prefrontal cortex offline. We've talked about this lots of times, flipping your lid, right? Amygdala's in charge when you're overwhelmed. You can't access your prefrontal cortex. These two facts together mean that attempting to plan your way out of overwhelm is like trying to turn on a light that has a dead switch. The wiring isn't live. It doesn't matter how hard you flip it, up and down, up and down. It's just not going to work. When your threat response is activated, your brain is running a different operating mode. It is optimizing for survival, for escaping that perceived threat, not for productivity. You could hand a dysregulated ADHD brain the most beautifully designed planning system in the world, and that brain's going to stare at it blankly because the part of the brain that operates planning systems isn't accessible. The just make a list instinct, by the way, backfires in a specific way. Plans made while overwhelmed tend to be either wildly unrealistic, like I'll do 52 things by tomorrow, or shame driven and punishing. Those are the plans that you abandon, 2 days later while adding another layer of self-criticism. Regulation restores access to your planning brain. It is the prerequisite, not a delay in getting started. Before I lose you to, I don't have time for self-care, let me be clear about what regulation is and what it isn't. Regulation is not meditation retreats, journaling, yoga, bubble baths, positivity exercises, or calming yourself down. Regulation is any action that moves your nervous system out of threat mode and back into functional range. That's it. If it does that, it's regulation. It doesn't need to look peaceful. It doesn't need to feel relaxing. It just needs to work. And this is what this means practically. It doesn't even have to feel good. It just has to shift something. Some of the best regulation tools feel weird, uncomfortable, or even a little silly. Do them anyway. It takes 2 to 20 minutes, not a whole day, not a whole morning routine. You're not rebuilding your entire brain. You're giving your nervous system enough of a reset to bring your prefrontal cortex back online. Your regulation menu is yours. What works for your neighbor with ADHD may do nothing for you. This is about finding what moves your dial, and we'll get to that. And finally, this is the one that I really want you to internalize. The regulation is the most productive thing that you can do when you're dysregulated. Not the second most productive, the most, because nothing else you do in that state is really going to work. So here's the practical part. Here are 6 categories of regulation tools, and your job is to find at least one thing in each of them that actually does something for your nervous system. First up, we have movement. This is often the fastest one. Walk around the block, jump 10 times. Yes, literally. Get up from your chair, jump up and down. Shake your hands and arms like you're trying to fling water off them. Dance to one loud, aggressive song. Push-ups until you feel something physically shift. Movement discharges stress hormones in a way thinking can't. Breathe. I know that a lot of you hate hearing just take a breath. Truly, breathing works so well because it engages the parasympathetic nervous system. It lowers your blood pressure, slows your heart rate. So the exhale is the part that really works as part of the regulation. So a 4 count inhale and 8 count exhale. Do that 3 rounds. You're telling your parasympathetic nervous system to come online. Box breathing works. 4 in, hold, 4 out, hold. So does breathing out really hard, forcefully a few times. The exhale activates the vagus nerves, and that's what we're after. Temperature, cold water on your face or wrists, holding an ice cube, stepping outside, a warm drink that you sip slowly. Temperature change is a fast nervous system interrupter. It's sensory and immediate. A sensory reset, loud music through headphones, or the opposite, complete silence for 5 minutes. Changing rooms entirely. Something with a strong scent, lighting a candle or some incense. Your nervous system can sometimes be shifted by changing the input that it's receiving. Social co-regulation. Humans regulate with each other. That's a feature of mammalian nervous systems. Okay, everybody does it. That we have mirror neurons. Kind of like, if you're watching a video of a baby laughing, you're going to start to smile. That's mirror neurons in action. And so if you can social co-regulate, text someone who gets it, body double for 20 minutes, send a voice memo to yourself out loud just so that you hear a voice that's not just the one inside your head. Okay, you don't even have to talk about the overwhelm. You can talk about anything, but it's that interruption. And then lastly, we have externalizing, brain dump everything onto paper. Not some kind of organized outline, not a plan. You're just dumping it all out. Say out loud what's happening. Voice memo the spiral. Hearing the spiral out loud in your own voice shrinks it. It's bigger inside your head than it is when it hits the air. Your regulation menu is something that you build now when you're calm, so it's ready when you're not. For the moments when you're already mid-spiral and you need something that works right now, here's a 3-step pattern interrupt. Step 1, stop and name it out loud or in writing. I'm in overwhelm right now. I'm in an RSD spiral. I'm in a shame loop. You don't analyze it. You're not problem solving. You're just naming it. This is what we call name it to tame it. It's a neurological intervention. Labeling the emotional state activates the prefrontal cortex, the part that you're trying to get back online. Okay, and it measurably reduces the amygdala activation. Saying the word changes what your brain does. Step 2, regulate, body first. Pick one thing from your regulation menu and do it for 2 to 5 minutes. No phone, no multitasking, no, I'll do a quick breath while I'm reading this email. Just the regulation. Give it your attention. It doesn't have to be real dramatic. It's not transformative. It just needs to move the needle slightly. And then step 3, ask one question. Not, what do I need to do to save my business? Not, how did I let things get this bad? What is actually true right now? Not what you fear, not what the spiral says, what is literally, factually true. I have 3 emails I haven't responded to. My launch goes live on Thursday. My current client deliverable is due on Friday. Those are facts. That's where the planning can start. From the facts, from a slightly regulated state, one question at a time. You don't need to feel calm, peaceful, or good before you plan. You just need to feel regulated enough. That's a much lower bar, and that's the point. That's what we're looking for. How do you know if you're regulated enough? You can identify what the actual problem is, not just that everything is terrible, but a specific thing that you can name. You can think of more than one possible option. If you can think of more than one possible option, right? Even if the options aren't great, you can access more than one. The urgency is dropped from, I'm going to die right now, to this is uncomfortable and I need to deal with it. You can access at least one resource, a person, a tool, a next step, something. You can make a small decision without it feeling catastrophic. That's regulated enough. You don't have to be totally out of survival mode, because for some of you, you've been running in survival mode for so long that it's going to take a lot more than a 3-step, 5-minute plan to get you out. You just need to be in a functional range. 2 minutes of movements is sometimes enough to get you there. So can 10 minutes outside or an honest conversation with yourself or someone else. You need to find those things that are going to work for you. And here's what changes when you plan from a regulated state versus a dysregulated one. The dysregulated brain says, I need to fix my whole business this week. The regulated brain asks, what's the one thing that matters most today? The dysregulated brain says, I have to respond to every email immediately. The regulated brain says, which of these actually need a response today? The dysregulated brain says, I should completely rebuild my entire offer suite. The regulated brain says, what's already working that I can lean into? The dysregulated brain says, I need to work 12 hours to catch up. The regulated brain asks, what's my minimum viable day? The plans coming out of a regulated brain are shorter. They are more realistic. They are scoped to actual capacity. They have a better chance of surviving contact when things start to go haywire. The minimum viable day is your planning brain's most important tool for overwhelmed days, and I want to make sure that you're clear on what it is. This is not the bare minimum to feel okay about yourself. It's a triage framework. 3 questions that, answered honestly from a regulated state, give you a workable plan for when your brain is not at full capacity. This is not about, I'm a slacker and I'm just going to come up with a slacker protocol. This is about knowing that you are going to have days when your brain is not at full capacity, so you plan for them so you can still be productive, so you can still move the needle, so that you can still function without piling on more overwhelm. Question 1, what is the one thing that absolutely must happen today? Revenue protecting, client-facing, or deadline-driven only? Not things that would be nice to do, not things you've been putting off. One thing that if it doesn't happen today has real consequences. Just one. Question 2, what will I let go of entirely today? Not postponed, not bumped on the list, not I'll try to get to it later. Let go. You are triaging. A triage mindset means that you are deliberately choosing what does not get your resources today, so that the one thing that you need to do actually gets those resources. And then question 3, what does done look like at 5 p.m. or whatever your ending time is? Something concrete, specific. I sent the proposal to a client. I recorded the video for module 2. Not, I made progress on my launch. Not, I worked on the course. What is the specific, verifiable thing that signals that you can close your laptop and be done? Answer all 3, do the thing. That's a successful day. It's not a full day. It's a successful day, and that distinction is everything for a brain that's running on fumes. Here's the shift I want you to make. Stop treating regulation as the emergency measure you reach for when things fall apart. Start treating it as a standard business practice. The goal isn't just to cope with overwhelm better when it hits. It's also to have it hit less often. That requires building regulation into the operating system of your business. So you want to always do some regulation before high stakes work, before a launch day, before a sales call, before you sit down to write email or your social media content, any content. 5 minutes of regulation first. This is a performance investment. A regulated brain produces significantly better output than a barely functional one. Schedule decompression windows after back-to-back calls, after launches, after difficult conversations. 30 minutes of non-productive time isn't laziness. It's recovery that your nervous system needs to be functional for the next thing. We talk a lot about buffer time. If you don't build it in, you're going to take it anyway, but you're going to end up taking it at a time that is going to cost more. Dysregulation check-ins. Set a calendar reminder for once or twice during your day and just ask, what is my nervous system doing right now? Catching dysregulation early when you're at a 4 or a 5 instead of a 9 out of 10. It's easier to work with when you're at a 4 than when you're at a 9. You're not always going to notice it happening in real time, so if you build the prompt in, you can catch it at the earlier stages. Pre-written planning prompts. Your minimum viable day questions should already be written down in a note, on a sticky note somewhere accessible, because when you are dysregulated, that's the worst possible time to remember what you need to ask yourself. You have it written down. All you have to do is pull it up. Regulate, plan, execute. It's not a slower approach. It's actually faster because you can stop redoing work that was created in crisis mode. You can stop abandoning plans that were built on shame and stop losing days to the aftermath of pushing through when you shouldn't have. A 10-minute regulation break that actually restores your executive function is more productive than 2 hours of pushing through and forcing output from a brain that's offline. The one thing approach isn't limiting your ambition. It's the only approach that actually moves the needle on days when your brain is at partial capacity, which for a lot of you is a lot of days. And here's the business case. Regulated entrepreneurs make better decisions. They write better copy. They show up better on sales calls. They have better client relationships. They close more. This is a revenue strategy, not a wellness trend. This isn't about, self-care. It is, but it's not in the way we usually see it. You are choosing between being productive and taking care of you're not choosing between being productive and taking care of your nervous system. Regulating your nervous system is being productive. And here's your one thing for today. Write your regulation menu. Not a list of things that you might want to try. You could do that too, but find 3 things that actually work for your brain that you know from experience. Turn down that dial even a little bit. Write them down so that you have them before you need them, because when you're mid-spiral, that's not the time to say, okay, let me go figure out what's going to work. 3 things written down somewhere accessible. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If this resonated with you, hit like, subscribe, share with someone else, and I will see you in the next one.